and welcome to another exciting video. In this one, we'll learn how we can create a simple reusable React component. Now, one of the biggest paradigm shift that React offered to the UI ecosystem was the component model. It allows you to package up all the logic, styling, and layout of a unit of UI into a box that you can easily move around and reuse without exposing any of the implementation details of the component. You don't have to understand how a component works internally to use it effectively. With idiomatic component architecture, rendering a component in one place won't impact other parts of your app. Now, in this lesson, we will learn how to create a React component and how to use it. You'll be learning why things work the way they do and how to use this to your advantage. Now, over here, you can see we have a plain and simple div with two texts, Hello World and React for Beginners. And this is inside a div with a class name container. And we are rendering it over here. Now, if I want that these should be variables so that I can just, custom place the messages over here. To do that, what we can do is create a function. Now, that function, let's call it as const message. And it is going to have some properties. So a single parameter is being passed, and that's why we don't need to make use of the brackets. And over here, we will be taking this div class container over here, and we'll be simply putting it over here. And let's call this class name as message. And after this, we will be having our props that we are passing within curly brackets. So we'll say props, and we'll be passing an attribute called MSG. So that will be used to display the custom message. And this is the message that we have. Now, let's go ahead and instead of hello world, let's go ahead and make use of the message. So here, we'll again make use of the curly bracket and then we'll put message. This time, we'll have to pass a parameter. Now, that parameter is going to be message colon, and then we'll say this is the value that I want to pass. And here, we'll be wrapping it up now like this. And then we'll be closing this as well. So we are calling this message over here with the value hello world, and then we'll call another method similar to this one. And this time we'll be passing the message as React for Beginners. So here we'll have this. Now, if I save this file, you'll notice that we are getting two divs. Let's go ahead and inspect them. There you go. So you can see we have this div class message as hello world, and then div class message again as React for Beginners. So what we are able to do now is that we are able to reuse the same method and render two different components. By two different components, I mean we have two different versions of this message. And if we want to further simplify this, what we can do now is, if I just copy this and put it over here, and let's go ahead and instead of this whole thing, let's go ahead and try typing message in angular brackets and then saying hello world. So let's see what happens now if I type something of this sort. So here, if I go ahead and say message. Now if I save this, you'll notice that it is still rendering a hello world, but we are getting some errors as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at that as well. So in the console, you can see a warning is coming up. It says the tag message is unrecognized in this browser. If you meant to render a React component, start its name with an uppercase letter in message. So here, if I follow that suggestion and go ahead and make it a capital M, so here we have a message component now. But again, it says message is not defined and you don't see any output now. So what it means is we can have a component if we create it with this name, and then we can pass these values as child attributes. Now, to do that, all I need to do is, let's go ahead and update my method with a capital M and save this now. But you can see that we are not getting any results. So what if we just comment this for the moment, and here if I go ahead and just have it as message and let's cut it out, you can see that it's still rendering. So it's like we have the same message over here being called. Now if I go ahead and use the same message that we earlier commented out, and over here instead of hello world like this, if I cut it out and as a parameter, if I pass this value message equals, and within this hello world, and now try saving this, you'll notice that it is now rendering properly and without any errors. So we are now getting hello world like this. So we have the message now, and the attribute is now being passed over here in JSX syntax. Over here it was a method parameter. Now if I want to pass this value as if normal HTML tags, so what I can do is I just cut this out from here, and if I try to make this look like this hello world, you'll notice that it's not rendering over here. So in order to ensure that it renders properly in this way, we'll be modifying our message function a little bit. So here we'll be passing children instead of the message, because you can see now we are not specifying the parameter basically. So earlier we were saying that there's a attribute called MSG which will hold the value hello world or React for beginners, but now when I'm saying message and in opening and closing between these I'm just passing this value hello world, React does not know to which parameter this should be assigned, and that's why we are making use of children. So when we do this, you'll notice that it is going to be made part of the children collection. And now let's go ahead and save this. So you can see it's showing hello world now. Let's remove these for the moment so that we can see the output, and do not confuse with the other line items here. So we have hello world now. Similarly, if I go ahead and create one more, but this time I'll be making use of the children attribute. So here if I say children and we say React for beginners within this, and we remove this hello world, save this now, you'll notice two things are now coming up. Now we have two versions, so either you call it this way, you will be getting the output, or you call it this way, then also you'll get the same output. If you see the rendering of this over here in the head section, you'll notice that it is creating these div elements, and within that the messages are being passed. So here it says React for beginners and hello world. If I scroll it a bit, there you go. So we are creating two React elements using react.create element, and one is having this value and the other one is having React for beginners. So to review, what we did here was we had some code that was being duplicated and we wanted to reuse that code in multiple places. So we created our own custom function component, which is a function that accepts a props object and returns more React elements. We had to make sure that our function component started with a capital letter so that Babel would compile this to pass the function itself to react.create element rather than string message to react.create element. That way, when React renders our element, it knows what function to call.